here we go.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Mike from the Super Wheeler Bros, and today we have got a review for you for Resident Evil: The Final Chapter. God, let's hope so. What we're going to do today is we're going to give a non-spoiler review, we're going to give the movie a grade, and then afterwards, if you've already seen the movie, you can stick around and we'll talk about some specific things from the movie and delve a little bit deeper into plot details and what this movie means for the franchise and just how it ended up and my feelings a little bit more in depth. So let's get into it. Resident Evil: The Final Chapter stars Milla Jovovich as our main protagonist, Alice. Once again, this movie, to say it disappointed me would be a vast understatement. I am admittedly a fan of the series. They're definitely guilty pleasures of mine. I don't think you can meet anybody who actually is convinced that these movies are great movies. They're there for fans of the Resident Evil series, both games and otherwise, if you just want to have some fun with some turn your brain off, action, horror, blended elements. I don't think that even fans of the Resident Evil movie series, which is completely different from the video game series, there's nothing really redeeming from the video game series, for the most part, that we have gotten out of the film series. But I don't even think fans of the actual film series can get much out of this. None of the actors really acquitted themselves admirably, except for Ian Glenn, the returning Dr. Isaacs in this film. And it's sad because they definitely had a pro on their hands, and he hams it up big time. And looks like he's actually enjoying himself and having some fun. Even Milla looks bored in this movie. It's so incoherent. It is a sloppy, incoherent mess. The editing is god-awful. It looks as if somebody who had some type of disorder, cerebral palsy, something that makes you shake, got on the keyboard and just pounded it out and was like, that looks good, and then got the execs at Sony or Screen Gems to go, that's good, print that. We've got it. I think we've got it. Ugh, it is so bad. The median length for shots in this film had to be maybe less than a second. It was ridiculous. The first 30 minutes turned me off for the rest of the movie. Even the middle of it started to maybe jump into some things that might have been a little bit more interesting, having better plot points, having a little bit more coherent action, but there's no semblance of being able to see what's going on. You lose characters, some people die, and you can't even tell which person died until the following scene where it's standing still long enough to notice that they're not even there anymore. It's so bad. And I'm not sure where Paul W.S. Anderson, who has to be one of the absolute worst filmmakers out there, I don't understand where he came up with this style. All of the other Resident Evils, every single one of them, have been a little bit more of a slow motion type style, a little bit more stylized. And this one, it's like he saw Mad Max Fury Road and was like, that's a really good movie. I'm going to try and get that. I want there to be a more kinetic energy to my visuals, to my editing style. George Miller is a master at action. He is a master of that type of editing style. Paul W.S. Anderson, I don't know, I don't want to call him a hack, but that's the only thing that comes to mind when I think about his visual editing style. It's so bad. I mean, it just makes little to no sense. You can't make you can't make sense of anything that's going on the screen. It's so chaotic and jumbled, and there's nothing that Alice does in this movie that really make you feel like she's this big action hero. It just happens. Only if you've seen the other movies in the series will you feel like she's earned it. It just boggles my mind as to where we got this Mad Max ripoff, this gritty world, when nothing nothing came from that before. It doesn't make much sense. I don't know if in the subsequent 4 years since the last entry into the series that we have come to this. It doesn't make much sense. There's little to no plot. Not that you should be expecting a huge plot from Resident Evil, but there's got to be something. And I won't spoil the ending until later in the review, but it's just bad, and it betrays everything that even fans of this series have come to expect, and just completely outright kind of denigrates everything that a main character has gone throughout the series. It's pretty poor. And like I said, the acting, what acting? What? There's no acting going on. It's just, and I'm a fan of this series. I truly am. I had not high expectations into this movie at all, and I was still disappointed. It's definitely disheartening a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So if you guys are fans of the series, I'm not even sure if you're gonna get much out of it. It's a shame, really. It's so poor, the editing, and I'm so glad I didn't see this movie in 3D, because if you did, man, it probably really would have given me a headache. The problem is, if you've seen the other Resident Evil movies, you'll know exactly how this is turning out. I mean, we've had Resident Evil Apocalypse, we've had Resident Evil Extinction, we've had Resident Evil Afterlife, Retribution. I mean, all these subtitles have already kind of led to the final chapter. I think that it's time for this series to go the way of the dodo and call it a day. And hopefully we can just get a rebooted series where we can actually make a convincing horror movie out of the game and actually adapt some of the storylines in the game, which admittedly wasn't the greatest storylines in the world, but it's just classic. You have these classic just stories from the original Resident Evil games that you could use, and they could work much better. I feel like the atmosphere is what it's really about, and this movie has no atmosphere. The story is essentially the same as every other Resident Evil movie that we get, and it's just ragtag group of guys, you know, that we find Alice with, and
What are we gonna do?
We're gonna kill every last one of them.
they're ready to fight back against, you know, the evil Umbrella Corporation, and it just doesn't work. Even though most people thought the last movie, Retribution, was really bad, I still enjoyed it for the most part. I thought Afterlife was kind of a highlight, you know, a high point in the series, and the last movie was a little bit worse, and this one was the worst of the Resident Evil movies. I really do believe that it's probably my least favorite. Even Ali Larter as Claire Redfield, it was hard to even remember that she was in the movie because of how this movie was edited. You literally got about 4 to 5 lines of dialogue from her that had any kind of resonance at all. I only remembered she was in the movie because maybe 2 or 3 times it stopped moving. The screen, then the camera stopped jittering for a second. And I was like, oh yeah, that's Ali Larter, that's Claire Redfield. Awesome. It's such a... if I was going to score Resident Evil, the final chapter, I would give it a 2 out of 10. Are you still here? Okay. If you're still here, I'm going to spoil some things now. So if you are a fan of the series and you want to talk in depth about this, I'm going to probably spend a few minutes and discuss a few things that I really almost left the theater upset about. The major thing that I was upset about, besides the absolute putrid editing and cinematography that was in this movie, and the admittedly bad CGI, but that's okay. Resident Evil movies have had bad CGI the whole time. It's the fact that not only did we rip off Mad Max, but in the last movie, we left off almost seeming like there was going to be this epic battle, this final confrontation, and we got double-crossed again and again, and this series has all been about just double and triple and quadruple crosses, which is fine. But Jill, nowhere to be found, never mentioned again. Chris Redfield, nowhere to be found, never mentioned again. Leon Kennedy, nowhere to be found, never mentioned again. Ada, nowhere to be found, never mentioned again. The little girl that we spent the entire last movie searching after, that was Alice's clone daughter, never to be found, never to be mentioned again. The only character throughout the entire series besides Wesker and Isaacs, who are villains, and the Red Queen, who was a villain, the only character we get to see again is Claire. And it's so hard to even tell she's in the movie, like I mentioned earlier, because of the rapid editing. It's just annoying, the fact that we've gone through now, this is the 6th movie in this franchise. Bow. 6. And this is what we have to show for it. You're supposed to care about the characters when there's these dire straits going on. And the ending is probably the second biggest offender in that it is a complete cop-out. Not only is Alice now a clone, which is entirely predictable and whatever, it's just stupid. It betrays the whole building of her character. It's not a good way to end with her character. This whole time, the whole movie, we're told the antivirus for the T-virus is going to kill anything that is associated or have been infected at all with the T-virus, which means Alice is gonna die. And of course, guess what? Doesn't kill her. Even if we're trying to have some emotional resonance with this dumpster fire of a movie, we can't even have that. We can't even have a cathartic moment because we're just gonna cop out. We're gonna let Alice live because they wanted to be sure that she could really go through with it, that she could really sacrifice herself for the human race, that she could really just, boom, lay it on the line. It's just stupid. It doesn't make any sense. The plan that Dr. Isaacs has is so dumb. They're trying to create Noah's Ark again. They're going to cleanse the world. Trying to make this more important than it really is not the way to achieve success with Resident Evil as a property. It took me 15 years to just finally have enough of this series, and I'm so glad that it's the final one. But guess what? I'm not even sure that it's the final one. The last shot of the movie is basically Alice riding on a damn motorcycle where she's like, I got more work to do because the T-virus cure is not going to reach all ends of the earth. I was really disappointed with this movie. I am admittedly a fan of the series. I own all of the previous entries in the series and pretty much every game in the series. I just really enjoy Resident Evil as a property, and this one really let me down. It really did. At least the other ones have tried to adopt its own style and retain style from the game, even if it wasn't using particular storylines and characters from the game. And Alice has definitely been an addition that has been welcome enough to where I can get behind it and behind her. And this movie just feels like it just falls way short. It really does. It's the worst one of the series by far. I think that's where I'm going to leave it. So, once again, scoring Resident Evil, the final chapter, it gets a 2 out of 10. Tell me what you guys thought of Resident Evil, the final chapter in the comments below. Thank you for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like. It definitely helps us out. And if you enjoy videos like this and you want to see more in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. My name is Mike from the Super Wheeler Bros, and as always, my friends, have yourselves a super week.